Well, the US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, as I mentioned at the top of the program, has responded to the shooting near the White House and declared the Trump administration is looking at stepping up the National Guard presence, some 500 more guards flooding into the nation's capital.
Shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. President Trump will never back down. That's why the American people elected him. America and our warriors, our National Guardsmen, are strong. And so we're following this very closely. We're getting information rapidly. I mentioned the faith of this country, the Christian faith, the prayers. I would ask for prayers for our National Guardsmen.
Excuse me, Mr. Pete.
Appeals to heaven for our National Guardsmen, for their families, on bended knee as a War Department, as a nation.
Excuse me.
So let's try and figure out what happened here. It is getting into the evening in DC right now. A big police presence still in the streets where these two National Guardsmen were shot. Joining me live now is former FBI agent Phil Andrew. Phil, thanks so much for your time. First and foremost, and it's not the most important point, obviously here, but Kash Patel looks like a man under pressure right now. Again, for a second time, there was misinformation coming out about what had actually happened here and the condition of these National Guards.
Yeah, we see a lot of confused messages from this administration and some of the leaders in it. Kash Patel just does not seem up to the challenge and doesn't seem really that engaged. It seems like he's never available. He's often traveling and doing personal things when he should be actually super engaged. So I think that his briefings are very much coming from the internet and not from internal sources. And it has a lot to do with him just not having kind of the experience and really the professional manner to be leading the FBI at this time. But as you say, like at this moment, like our hearts go out to these guardsmen, particularly as the U.S. is celebrating Thanksgiving. And there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there certainly is. So let's unpack from what we have now heard publicly, not gleaning things from the internet, but what we heard from the Mayor, Kash Patel, in this latest media conference. I don't think we've established a motive there. The suspect is in custody. Why would National Guards be targeted in this way?
Well, we don't know the motive here, but this looks like it was very intentional. And part of the difficulty here is that the deployment of the National Guard, which is not a police force, into the capital and other cities without a full coordination with local police puts the Guard in a vulnerable situation. They are not trained for policing, and they don't have many of the capabilities and the equipment that they need to do that effectively. And without that being coordinated with the local police, it does leave them vulnerable. But what we see here is clearly this was some sort of targeted attack. They were picked out deliberately by the shooter, and we just don't know where this investigation is. But what's odd is that we have the Department of Defense and Kash Patel both commenting on this with very limited information and making kind of these lofty claims. Obviously, we want to support those that have been hurt. You know, the idea that guardsmen or anyone is being attacked very deliberately is very concerning. But this idea that Kash Patel and the Secretary of Defense are sort of trying to leapfrog, maybe one up each other with trying to get to the press first to impress the president, just shows the level of lack of professionalism, really the lack of strategy, and some of the things that are we really need to keep cities safe. Coordinated strategies, highly coordinated and professional work. And that's just not what we're seeing from these two.
No, we've seen Trump on Truth Social as well saying these animals or this animal will be, justice will be served essentially. But the role of a National Guard it's not a symbolic role, obviously, but targeting a National Guard has a bigger effect or a different effect than it would another law enforcement officer. It's kind of an attack on the state, and we can see that from the reaction from Trump, Hegseth, Patel, right?
Well, I think that any deliberate attack against officials, this kind of political violence, which we've seen increasing in the US, is deeply, deeply concerning. So whether this was a law enforcement officer or deployed National Guard in the performance of their official duties, this has to be seen as a political violence attempt here, and with tragic consequences. So much more needs to be done to prevent political violence, to set a strong message that political violence is not acceptable. That has to be messaged on. It needs to be prosecuted very seriously. But we also need to be thinking about comprehensive and effective public safety strategies. And that's what we haven't seen from this administration, the willingness to coordinate effectively with local law enforcement, sharing intelligence, and then responding in ways that we know evidence-based, that have been proven, that are effective for creating great levels of public safety.
Phil, thanks so much for your time as always. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.